Hey there. I'm not really a YouTuber, but I do use YouTube quite a bit to kind of understand and explore reviews and stuff like that. And I know there's a world where content creators have to do positive reviews and omit things that are maybe not as positive, um, so they can live, so they can get more relationships with vendors. So, um, as a Tesla owner, Model Y, 29,000 miles per year, who just purchased a Rivian, there's a lot of little things that I found interesting. So I decided, and I've been asked by a few of my friends questions like, "Hey, how's this going? And how do you like this?" And so I figured, the question is valid enough that maybe I'll just make a video and kind of just upload it as is with no editing, and hopefully this is a benefit to you guys. So this is kind of my every couple of days I'll do a vlog entry on how it is transitioning from the Tesla Model Y, which I still own and I love, to the Rivian R1T. So this won't be in any order. This is just as things come to me. So let's talk about the fit and finish, for example. It's a different world. The wood grain, when you turn it on at night when the lights are off, the way the wood grain lights up by the hidden LEDs, it's a beautiful truck. Um, the Tesla I find to be really good looking car as well, but the interior, a lot of money and effort was spent to make sure this thing looked really pretty. So the phrase like where Land Rover meets Tesla meets Bronco, I think that's a pretty good way to look at the car. Interior is gorgeous for sure. I am personally looking forward to the Cybertruck in 2-3 years because I'm a functional reform type of guy, and this is such a pretty truck that I can't see myself really off-roading in this thing too much, because in Florida, unlike Utah, there's trees everywhere, and so you'll pinstripe everything. So, to give some credibility to what I'm saying, I had the vehicle I sold to buy this one was a 2020 Jeep Gladiator, 2.5-inch lift on 37s with the bed rack and the tent, and it was a Rubicon, so it had all the lockers. So did a lot of off-roading, and in that case, I got some pinstriping, I got some scratches, I banged up some of the, you know, Under Armour, and that was good. It's a Jeep. It's what it's made for. And although this thing I'm sure can give it a good run for its money, obviously not in 37s, but um, it's just too pretty, if that makes any sense. Now, God bless you if you have the money. I bought this used with 10,000 miles. If you have the money to go take this thing off roading, and you hear horror stories about, and if you haven't seen it, the $47,000 dent. I don't know how much validity there is in it, but I found it interesting the other day that I was talking to a friend of mine whose boyfriend valets cars, and said that Rivian was the only vehicle that they wouldn't valet, and it's a nice restaurant hotel in Melbourne, and so they're not allowed to valet it because of how expensive it is to fix. So hopefully that's not the case. I know Tesla had the same reputation in the beginning because no one knew how to work with the unibody construction and the panels, and no one can get parts and all this other stuff. But something to keep in mind, and it's in the back of my head. I think that's the biggest thing. Is this is a beautiful truck, and so if you're looking at the luxury side of it, this has got a beat hands down. Now, on the flip side, and I'm going to jump back and forth, but I think this is not a better or worse. It's different, and a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences. The interface and the UI, they've added a lot in the last year. From what I can tell, they've added the ability for the off-road pages and the motor temperatures and a lot of the adjustments, and but it's still pretty sparse. It's not like you can sit there in a Tesla and what it feels like for hours, going in and changing and quacking like a duck, and Netflix and videos and all this other stuff. None of that really exists. It's more of a car. I know RJ, I think they caught him in an interview, and they're working toward making it more entertaining. So when you're at a charging stop, in my use case, my Tesla with the charging, love it, easy, plug it in, go. It's our preferred vehicle on our Model Y for long distance travel. I've heard horror stories about the CCS charging network, and so, but for me, that's not a big deal because I won't be taking this thing on long trips. And if I do, you know, I'm mentally ready to never go below 20 and always make sure I can find a charger. Or if I do some camping and some mountain biking, I'll just go from campground to campground. And so I'll leave with a full charge every day to the next campground. So that doesn't really worry me too much. But if it does for you, it may be an issue. Um, Range seems pretty good. On one side, Tesla I can never get even remotely close to their thing. I think on my average commute to work, which is 75 miles an hour, 70 to 75 miles an hour average for an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 10 minutes on 95. If you extrapolate that 30 something percent I use, you basically get 240 miles. I did the same drive in this car and I'm going to be at 280, 290 miles with the 21-inch rims. So the range is obviously much better than my Model Y. I had a regular Model Y, long range, non-performance. So I should be getting 300 plus, not even close. A lot of the people on the Facebook post said, hey, go with the 20 inches, you never regret it. But I was looking for used, and so between looking for used, looking for a launch edition because I wanted the tonneau cover because I think it's going to hold its value better, and then trying to find out the best price, and there's not a lot of them for sale, so I didn't want to drive 3, 5, 6, 9 hours to go pick it up. Those four intersected with a silver with 21-inch rims, so it is what it is. They do sell for $5,500 the black 20-inch rims with tires with installation, so not ridiculous. So maybe I'll look at that and then sell off the spares for like $300 a piece and make some of that money back. Not sure. Again, it's such a pretty car. I'm worried about scratching it and doing damage to it because it's so pretty. In regards to space, everything you've probably seen is true. The frunk is huge. You know, the gear tunnels are really useful. I've got my tools on one side, all in tool bags, all kind of stacked up. I can reach in and grab my tools. I have a battery charger for the Ryobi in there, so I can every once in a while, once in a blue moon, I'll swap out the batteries and just turn on the 120 volt inverter and charge it up. It's really cool. And the Tesla, my Model Y, had no chargers, no 110 outlets. So to have one in the front, to have one in the gear tunnel, and have one in the trunk, you really can't beat that. I live in Florida, obviously, in Melbourne. So if there is a hurricane one day, being able to use the car's battery to power some low-level stuff, you know, a window AC for 400 watts and a fridge and stuff like that, can be very useful, especially if I have a solar battery in the middle that can handle larger surges. So that's one negative compared to the legendary Cybertruck, which is being made now, but I'm pretty far down the list. The inverter here is like 1,200 to 1,500 watts, whereas the inverter on the Tesla Cybertruck is huge. So I would have liked to have seen it bigger. I think when I do use it, which won't be that often, when I do use it, I'm going to need that extra power, and it's not going to be there, so it is what it is. Initial experience with the key fob, it sucked. No other way to put it. I think maybe 40% of the time, if I walked toward the vehicle very slowly, the doors would unlock before I got to it. If I came from behind, forget about it. 1 out of 10 times. It did take 5 days to activate my ownership of the car to give me access to phone as a key. And once that was done, which just literally happened today, 5 days later, because of the weekend, I'm going to reserve judgment because it has worked, sometimes it hasn't. I didn't realize that I had set that when I'm at home to only lock, so it never opened. So I'm going to reserve judgment on that until I can kind of play with it a little bit more. I think I did talk about the interior and how gorgeous the interior is for sure. The lack of a glove box, neither here nor there, not a big deal. The suspension, the ride quality is good. But it's weird. No other way to put it. So we have 2 speed bumps or speed humps by my house, and when you hit it, even slow, you hear the weirdest clanking from the suspension. Sounds like a rock at the bottom of the chassis. I've heard people reviewing it. I think TFL talked about the Land Rover is more refined, and now I get what they mean. The clunk, I'm sure there's a reason why it happens, and it does, and it's designed to do that. And you know, the car rides great, phenomenal. So if there was something wrong, there would be some vibration, there would be something noticeable, and there isn't. So that's what they meant by it. It's literally a clunk. and I've tried it. I haven't tried off-road suspension driving down my street, but I've definitely had it on normal and conserve and all-purpose, and no matter what, it has that weird clunk every time you hit it. So it's surprising, and I guess I'll get used to it over time. In regarding to speed, this thing is insane. And Model Y non-performance, I think is 4.4, 4.6 seconds, 0 to 60. This thing from a stop on sports mode is just stupid fast. It just makes you dizzy. So that's really cool. I've been spending most of my time driving in conserve, because I don't need the speed. But in conserve, you don't have that punch it go lane change. So I'm starting to drive a little more all-purpose so that when I do want to have that lane change punch, I can do that a lot quicker. The kneeling function is pretty cool. Like, again, they just added it not too long ago, but my wife has to hoist herself. It's weird. When I purchased the truck, I had mentioned to the guy I was also looking at the Ford F-150 Lightning, and ironically, this was traded in for a Ford Explorer, which is just weird. But looking at this next to my Tesla, it looked a little bigger, just perception-wise. Then you look at it compared to the Lightning, and it looks tiny, and the Lightning is gargantuous. And when I mean gargantuous, inside it's huge, but it's super comfortable. Tell you what, you've heard it before, the suspension on the F-150 Lightning is definitely softer and more plush. Obviously, it can't do all these other things that the Rivian can do. But then when you get and you start driving the Rivian, it feels much bigger. So just a perception, it is definitely smaller than a F-150. I've never driven a Tacoma, so I don't know. I've never driven a Colorado, so I don't know. I've been F-150 and F-250s for a long time prior to my Jeep, but it feels even bigger than my Jeep. Now, obviously, if you know Jeeps, the tires are really wide, and then it kind of brings into the frame, and then it's meant to be center of gravity, meant to be very tight, so that way you can off-road better. But it does feel bigger. But then when you gun it, it's just stupid fast. There's just no other word I have for it. So what else? The electric tonneau cover does work on this one. I do really enjoy it. I right now have a propane tank that I've kind of got smushed using it, and the propane tank stays nice and still, so using it as a way to hold things down without having to use ratchet straps is really nice. I found that the bed actually has little puck holes, little plastic covers. When you remove the plastic covers, there's actually bolts. I think they're M8s. And so I took one of those rails, which has the quick L-track releases that I had on my Jeep, and I just went to Home Depot, removed those caps, removed the screws, bought longer ones, and now I got a track. I did order 2 more Molle panels that use the same existing pre-made holes, so that way when I want to carry stuff, it's easy to carry. If you haven't seen the crossbars for the Rivian R1T, great design. I ordered them already, $600 and something. I got to wait for them to come in. But the Rivian crossbars basically just drop into those little hooks that are in the back and also on the top of the truck, and they just snap in and then lock, and then has a little cover to protect the little key locks. What's so cool about that is if you haven't seen him, EV Lander, I think he used to work for Rivian, but he actually has his tent, I think a water tank and a bunch of other things. He just reverses it into his garage, hooks on, hoists, and basically disconnects it real quick and hoists it up, and he's done. He's ready to go back to work. So super cool. Maybe that's existed for other trucks. Everything I've ever had, the tonneaus and everything are bolt-on and don't have that ability to go right on top of your tonneau cover while keeping your electric tonneau cover. So for me, that was one of the major drivers of hunting down a launch edition, was that. I think at this point, 380 miles or 330 miles rather. First impression is 9 hours driving, and I think that's about it. From the backseat perspective, my kids think it's significantly roomier. They call it a fishbowl. There's more glass, and I think the Tesla has a lot of glass. I just think you sit higher, which is definitely one difference. You can sit yourself. They've designed it to be for off-roading. You can bring your seat really high. I'm only 5'8", I've got maybe 5 or 6 inches above my head. I can go to the point where I feel like I'm driving a Land Rover. I used to own an LR4 or LR3, and that one had a very boxy, very tall feel to it. And you can sit like that in this car, but the weird thing is when you do that, and if you choose to sit very high, the steering column doesn't move all the way up. And so you lose a decent chunk of your gauge cluster. I would say, looking at it right now, without being fully up, if I go fully up, and let's say I was off-roading and I would want to be able to look down a lot easier, I lose easily half my screen. So kind of weird. I would have loved for them to have made it. And the front doesn't pitch as much as I would like. It kind of just drops this way and this way, but doesn't go that way. So I'm not a tall dude at 5'8". So at the end, my feet hitting the pedals, kind of the front of the seat kind of lifts up my legs and it can cause some pressure. So I'm not doing that. The side mirror, the Spotify works great. The cameras are actually really nice. The bed camera, again, just something they added recently, which I say that because we know in Tesla, you get these features. People look forward to the Christmas update. Rivian seems to be doing the same thing, which for me is exciting as a tech guy. I love getting into the car and finding new things. And so the cameras, the way it has the 360 camera, shame on Tesla for not doing it. They keep saying we don't need it, but when you use it, it is phenomenal. And so it's too bad they don't have it. I don't think they don't even have it in the Cybertruck. I'm not 100% sure though. So the cooled seats really do work. They're really nice in Florida and comfortable. So overall, that's my initial impressions. Every time I finish one of these little episodes with new thoughts, what's come to my mind as I drive it, I'll kind of answer the question, everyone, would I buy it again? And right now, yes. The only apprehension I have is a Model Y right now because of depreciation and the flood on the market of EVs. You can get a nice Model Y with 10, 15,000 miles for 40,000. This truck is 70, I got it for 71,000 used with 10,000 miles, which I thought was a great deal. There were several for 67 with a lot more miles, 20,000, 25,000 miles. So I think this was a good deal, especially as a launch edition with the tonneau cover. But it's a lot more money. If the money is not an issue to you and you're blessed to have the income, then yeah, I would say this is better than a Model Y for sure. But for me, as a commuter and still falling back on the Model Y and the Tesla infrastructure not being open to CCS yet, it's a little harder to say unequivocally yes. Assuming the car is not as fragile for body damage and repairs as some of the rumors are, if you obviously need to go off-roading, then there's no choice right now until you get your hands on a Cybertruck. So, but I think RJ and his team did a great job. I think if you're looking for an EV with a lot of space, crazy fast, with Land Rover interior, this is probably the only option you got, and it's a really great option. So I'm rooting for Rivian. I'm rooting for them to keep investing on the software. I know you've already heard it probably a million times in other reviews. No Android Auto, no AirPlay, or Android Auto and whatever the Apple equivalent is. Obviously, we didn't have it on the Tesla, but there's a YouTuber that kind of said, shame on you, both Tesla and Rivian. Being bold enough, I think he used the word arrogant, but being bold enough to say you know how to do music and maps and navigation and stuff like that better than Apple and Google. Not true. And so I know it probably has something to do with money. It has to do with something with revenue and control and the value of your data. And the thing is, Rivian needs as much money as it can. The cost pressures are probably crazy. I don't know how they're even pulling it off. So I'm fine with it, but it is a trade-off nonetheless. And if this car had AirPlay, in my case, Android Auto, it would be that much better, in my opinion, than by using it. So far, though, on that note, the maps, I actually like the maps better than the Tesla. It has more of a bird's eye view, and on restaurants, it has the names of the restaurants. So as you're driving, especially if you're looking for somewhere to eat, I can quickly glance down and see all the names of all the places. And that's actually pretty dang cool. It uses like a three-dimensional, like hollow building type of map. Maybe next video I'll just throw some pictures in to show you, but easier to find things, especially when you're driving around. So that is good, but I've heard stories about the navigation being pretty far off. Haven't really tested the accuracy of it. I know it's not really integrated with Waze, and I know Amazon owns part of Rivian, so the car is controlled by Alexa and not Google. So again, wish to give a no, Alexa, it said the A word, and the car picked up. So, but yeah, so far that's my impressions. I hope this helps. If it does, just don't even worry about subscribing. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to make this a career. But if it is something that you're curious about, next video I'm going to do some more autopiloting stuff, or what they call Driver Plus. I did it once. All the statements are true. Cannot use it anywhere but major highways. I've only used it on one major highway, so I don't feel like I'm confident enough. The autopilot on the Tesla is phenomenal. I use it everywhere. On US 1, on A1A, I use it everywhere. Beachside is very, they enforce speeds greatly, which means AKA the cops are going to stop you. And it can go from 55 to 25 to 35 to 55 pretty dang quick. I use my Tesla on autopilot, and I just let it manage the speed so I don't have to worry. And I can see myself totally getting stopped in this thing because you don't feel the speed in this. And without having autopilot, I got to actually pay attention with all these changes in speed limits. So if you are somebody who uses autopilot a lot in the back roads, and I mean the regular auto steer, not even the fancy enhanced, then you're going to be discouraged with this guy. I hear good things about Driver Plus according to the Facebook group, so I'm hopeful that it's great, because I'll be doing an hour 20-minute straight 95 drive twice a week. So, but I'll let you know on the next update on this vlog on how that goes. And I encourage you, if you want to know, ask me questions on the channel, and I'll do my best to answer them. Like I said, I appreciate all the other YouTubers that do these videos and answer questions, but a lot of them, they are sponsored. They don't want to lose access to their ability to get loaners so they can do reviews, so I get it. So that's the positive side. I think this is more the non-professional, no fancy transitions, but the more honest side. I do think it's a great truck. I cannot imagine, it really is between the Cybertruck, which unless you have major money, you can't get your hands on it, the Lightning and this one. And the Lightning is a truck. I would never take the Lightning, especially when you get the extended range. The Platinum, it has almost no rubber. It has locking differentials. Why? It's too long. It's too wide. In Florida, most of the trails are made by Jeeps, so you'll never get in. So for me, it was wait for the Cybertruck for 3 years and stay with the Gladiator, or go with this. And when you really narrow it to those two choices, this was much better. Again, though, I'm not going to go off-roading because it's just too pretty of a truck, in my opinion. So again, if you have any questions, let me know in the chat, and then hopefully I'll help you guys decide if this is the right car for you, and give you a bit more informed decision-making process with all this being done. All right, have a great one.